The Super Eagles of Nigeria made a good showing at the 2024 African Nations Cup, making it all the way to the final. The coach tried a new formation that the Super Eagles has not used in recent times, and many saw it as defensive, claiming that it didn't allow the Super Eagles players the chance to dominate with flair, as it has been known for. Did the coach get his formation right, and is the 3-4-3 the optimal formation for the Super Eagles? Or would the 3-5-2 be a better formation for the team? Let's get into it. It was one for the ages. The 2024 African Nations Cup in Côte d'Ivoire has definitely been the best in modern times. It had everything: drama, tension, social media banter, controversy, underdog story, zombie story, and its fair share of surprises. The Super Eagles of Nigeria proved naysayers wrong by progressing to the final of the competition, but unfortunately at the last hurdle, they fell short. At the African Nations Cup, the Super Eagles coach Jose Posero did something few expected after a mixed bag of performances in qualifiers and friendlies prior to the tournament. He changed the formation of the team to a defensive one with 3 central defenders in a 3-4-3 formation, hitting teams on the counter-attack. This proved largely effective as the Super Eagles rode the fruits of this strategy all the way to the final. In the final match, Nigeria scored a fortuitous goal before halftime and decided to maintain the timid approach of defending the rest of the game. This strategy had been working leading up to the final, but against a stronger, more determined Côte d'Ivoire side. Bolstered by home support, this strategy was the undoing of the Super Eagles. The Elephants of Côte d'Ivoire, who rose from the dead like zombies after nearly crashing out of the competition at the group stages, inadvertently equalized through a well-placed header by Frank Kessie. The Super Eagles needed to rally for another goal, but they ran out of ideas. Instead, they ceded the initiative to the Elephants of Côte d'Ivoire, allowing them to continue to pile on the pressure, which inadvertently led to the winning goal by Ivorian striker Sébastien Haller. The defensive strategy by the Super Eagles in the final was a major error because it allowed the Ivorians too much time on the ball. Similarly, having just 2 players in midfield and 1 solo striker up front was not an optimal formation for the Super Eagles, as Victor Osimhen did not get as much of the ball as he would have wanted. While Nigeria had a few top performers during the tournament, it was obvious a few areas of the team and certain players were not being optimized. Let's take a look at a few key areas of the team. The defense. In defense, Captain Troost Ekong, who was adjudged the player of the tournament, was a pillar for the Super Eagles throughout the tournament. He showed marked concentration throughout the tournament, fending out incursions into the Super Eagles' defense, and led his line as well as any captain can be expected to do. Calvin Bassey was another rock for the Super Eagles in defense before the final match against Côte d'Ivoire. However, in the final, he showed a lack of concentration in a few occasions. So inconsistency is the only flack in his game. However, he is young, and the improvement he has made in this area is glaring for all to see. It must be noted, however, that with Calvin Bassey's intelligence and eye for a cross, he may be better deployed attacking from the left side of midfield as a proper wingback. Deploying him as the wingback in a 3-5-2 formation, or taking the place of Zaidu Sanusi in a 3-4-3 formation, may be a better use of his abilities. Ola Aina performed well in the tournament and showed rare talent transitioning into attack, and also performed admirably in defense, at least until the final. In the final, he was beaten for pace a few times by Simon Adingra, including the one that led to the winning goal. A coach who had done his homework would have known that Ola Aina, despite his upside, cannot match the pace of Adingra, which may also be due to fatigue. Posero should have either played Osayi Samuel in the right-back role in the final due to his pace, or have at least 2 defenders keep track of him as the Super Eagles have done in previous matches against other threats. As a whole, playing Ola Aina in a more advanced role ahead of Bright Osayi Samuel may just be a better strategy for the Super Eagles. The playmaker role. It was an average performance for Alex Iwobi at the 2023 African Nations Cup, as he played in an unfamiliar role trying to fit into a holding midfielder role lying deep in midfield. Alex Iwobi's most effective position has always been in an advanced role available to score goals, like he has severally for the Super Eagles in the past. It is puzzling why the coach stuck to the strategy of playing 2 midfielders in the middle, making it difficult for Alex Iwobi to venture up front. Classic examples of Iwobi playing close to the strikers can be seen in Nigeria's 4-2 defeat of Argentina in a 2017 friendly match. Also in the recent friendly match against Ghana, he showed how more effective he is moving forward and distributing passes toward attack. Despite Iwobi's obvious abilities, a worthy replacement is also needed, as there would be a glaring gap in the team if he is injured or unavailable, as was evident for all to see at the 2022 African Nations Cup. Possible alternatives which this channel has advocated for include Michael Olise and his other Crystal Palace colleagues, David Ozo and Malcolm Ebewe. Other options include Reading midfielder Ovi Ajaria and Roma midfielder Michael Folarin-Shore, who unfortunately is about to be lost to Italy. Others also include Noni Madueke and Carney Chukwuemeka of Chelsea, as well as Rizespor midfielder Ibrahim Olawoyan, who could also play as a winger just like Madueke and Chukwuemeka. Youngsters Ebenezer Akinson-Miro of Inter Milan and Ethan Nwaneri of Arsenal, who are 19 and 17 years old respectively, are also options who should be looked at. Age should not be a limiting factor, as Mbappe was just 19 when he announced himself to the world and played a role in helping France win the World Cup in 2018. Some of the foreign-born players may have a rethink with the commendable display by the Super Eagles at AFCON 2023. There are probably other options in the Nigerian Premier League or other leagues in Africa, such as local boy Rafiu Ishak Kayode, who have also not been explored as options. The general impression that Nigeria has no options in this area is so far from the truth, and a lazy excuse for the FA and team handlers to continue to use the same players. The wingers. Nigeria's three wingers at the tournament, Ademola Lookman, Moses Simon and Samuel Chukwueze, offered Nigeria similar options on the wings, with each having their merits and demerits. Ademola Lookman produced the best performance of the three by scoring 3 goals in the tournament. Moses Simon also produced a few good performances when he came on, while Samuel Chukwueze was largely ineffective the few times he came on at AFCON 2023. Chukwueze has been known to lift his game when you least expect it, but unfortunately at this tournament it wasn't to be. As a whole, diminutive wingers tend to fade away when they play against physical teams with strong defenders. Nigeria needs to be more strategic if it wants to keep using these players as the main solution to its attacking initiative. Against stronger opposition, these players are better played in the second half when the opponent has tired out. At the end of the day, these are the most notable traditional wingers Nigeria has, but there are other options that have not been explored, such as Carney Chukwuemeka, Noni Madueke, and Stephen O'Day, to name a few. In physical competitions like the Nations Cup, and indeed in most competitions, it is better to have stronger, more effective wingers, as skill is no longer enough. With the present resources, it's pertinent to ask whether using the present wingers is the best way to build on attack for the Super Eagles. In the absence of better options, it may be a better idea to play Calvin Bassey and Ola Aina as wingbacks in a 3-5-2 formation. Alternatively, the Super Eagles could deploy a three-pronged attack of 3 non-traditional wingers like Victor Boniface on the left and Kelechi Iheanacho on the right. Of Victor Osimhen with Ndidi and Onyedika in the middle in the same 3-4-3 formation it used in the Nations Cup. The target man role. Victor Osimhen, by his high standards, was not at his best in the 2023 African Nations Cup. Coupled with some bad luck, Osimhen's performance was not a good testament of his abilities. Despite his hard work throughout the competition, his 1-goal haul was a far cry from what we know he is capable of. Although he was impactful in harrying every defense he came up against in the AFCON, it was obvious his abilities were not being maximized. His ability to draw attention to himself, however, allowed a player like Ademola Lookman to flourish. Quality passes to Osimhen were few and far between at the Nations Cup and were either too long or too short. This meant that he had to go deep quite a few times to get the ball, coupled with also putting in a defensive shift. By the final, it was obvious that Osimhen was all played out, and for most part of the final he seemed frustrated, tired and defeated. A good coach would have changed him in the final or given other strikers the chance to play earlier in the competition, allowing him to be more rested as the team advanced into the later stages. Also, the coach should have switched things up earlier by providing a support striker to support Victor Osimhen in a 3-5-2 formation. This formation would have allowed Iwobi to drift further upfield closer to the attackers to supply more precise passes and act as a pivot for their attacks. As a whole, Osimhen did well, but Nigeria needs to be less dependent on him, which will create the opportunity to try out other attacking options like Terem Moffi, Victor Boniface, and maybe Akor Adams, who has not yet been explored as an option. The coach. Head coach Jose Peseiro did quite well taking the team to the final, despite the little confidence in his abilities going into the tournament. His defensive strategy was spot on for large chunks of the competition, as better fancied teams like Senegal and Morocco crashed out at early stages of the competition. Whatever the case, his performance was commendable but lacking. He stuck to his defensive strategy, which had worked for him up to the final, but in the final this strategy was found out. You cannot defend for 90 minutes against teams like Côte d'Ivoire, allowing them to have more of the ball and expect that you will not get punished eventually. Apart from being flexible with his strategy and formations, in the match against Côte d'Ivoire, he failed to make needed tweaks to his strategy when it was required. Peseiro lost every football match that mattered before 2023, including all the friendlies since he was hired in 2021. While it can be argued that he was just getting to know the players, it can also be argued that his run in the 2023 African Nations Cup was a stroke of luck as he stumbled into a defensive strategy that worked. The decision to deploy the 3-4-3 formation, though it provided results, was not the optimal formation for Nigeria, as Iwobi had to play deep in midfield, not allowing him to venture up front where he is more effective, thereby depriving the Super Eagles of goals at the African Nations Cup. Also not playing Onyedika at AFCON was a great disservice to the Super Eagles, as apart from Ndidi, Onyedika is probably the best midfielder the Super Eagles presently has, bringing a strength and composure on the ball, which is unfortunately not often appreciated. Despite Jose Peseiro's shortcomings, in order to prevent Nigeria making a similar mistake as it did in the past with Jerno Rohr, it would have been a better idea to allow Peseiro take Nigeria through the World Cup qualifiers. Unfortunately, Nigeria decided to let him go after a breakdown in negotiations. The recent loss to Mali in a friendly match suggests that Nigeria has refused to learn from errors of the past. However, it is not too late. It can still get its act together before the qualifiers for the next World Cup in 2026. With the next World Cup in the USA fast approaching, the Super Eagles cannot waste any time in its efforts to get new players to fortify the team. It is hopeful that with the commendable performance of the Super Eagles at the 2023 AFCON, some foreign-born players who were on the fence will commit to playing for Nigeria. Nigeria can make a big statement at the World Cup in 2026, possibly doing better than Morocco did in Qatar 2022. Engaging the right coach with knowledge of the players and giving him the tools and the enabling environment for him to perform is important, as time is of the essence. The coach must evaluate what worked for Nigeria at the last Nations Cup and create a clear vision of how to improve the team in line with what has provided the Super Eagles with its best result in recent times. It is obvious that Nigeria does not have the players to effectively play a 4-4-2 formation with traditional wing play, a strategy which it has used right from its golden generation that had midfielders like JJ Okocha and Sunday Olise. The 3-4-3 formation also limits the Super Eagles because playing Iwobi in a holding role in a two-man midfield does not help in the creation of chances, as Iwobi is more effective in an advanced role as earlier established. Beyond coach selection and team strategy, the Nigerian FA must also put its house in order by getting the right sponsorship. This will ensure that the new coach is not be owed salaries and the players are not owed match bonuses. For the Super Eagles to do well at the next World Cup, there must be no distractions. Time is of the essence as Nigeria heads towards the challenges ahead. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet and like our content, please subscribe to support our channel. Also, please like, share, and leave a comment telling us what formation you think is the best for the Super Eagles and whether you think the incoming coach has enough time to prepare and qualify Nigeria for the coming World Cup in 2026. See you in the next video.